If you would like to earn CPE credit for listening to the show, visit earmarkcpe.com/FPA. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Finally, if you enjoy listening to FP&A today, please go to your podcast platform of choice, click the subscribe button, and leave a rating and review of the show. And now, on to the show.
From Data Rails, this is FP&A Today.
Welcome to FP&A Today. I'm your host, Glenn Hopper. Today on the show, we're joined by Rohini Jain, who leads finance strategy at BILL, the intelligent finance platform used by nearly 500,000 businesses to manage, move, and maximize their money. Rohini has more than 20 years of experience shaping and leading finance, product, and operations teams across some of the world's biggest names in fintech, payments, and e-commerce. Before joining BILL as the company's chief financial officer, she served as CFO and SVP of PayPal's large enterprise and merchant platforms, and previously held senior finance leadership roles at eBay, Walmart, and General Electric. She holds a master's in finance from the London School of Economics and is a chartered accountant with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. At BILL, Rohini is helping redefine what autonomous finance means for small and mid-sized businesses, combining data, technology, and AI to eliminate friction and expand opportunity. Rohini, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
I'm so excited to get to autonomous finance, but I'm gonna hold my horses on that, and we're gonna walk through your background a bit and everything, because you have a fascinating background, and I can't wait to hear, and for our listeners to hear about some of the positions and roles you've had. So on that, you've had a remarkable career. It's taken you through GE, eBay, PayPal, and now BILL. And I'm wondering, how did you first find your way into finance, and what's kept you hooked on it through all these years?
It's such an interesting question because if I really look back on what got me into finance, it was real chance, almost. So I was in this queue for depositing my fee for my college application. And like any other good Indian kid, I was going to be either an engineer or a doctor. So I was in the science line. And I saw this queue next to me depositing fee of all these people who were going to do commerce, which is the business and what we call it back in India as a study stream. And they were all talking about economics and business studies and management accounting. I'm like, oh, that sounds so interesting. And I'm just drawn to change. And I was like, okay, maybe interesting to do that instead of physics, chem, and math, which I've already done enough of. And I switched the queue and ended up, much to the disappointment of my mother, who to date regrets that. I did not become an engineer and went in to do commerce and then eventually CPA. It's been such a fascinating journey. Like I started out my career with GE and then moved over to eBay, and PayPal, was briefly at Walmart, and then BILL. And every day there's a new problem to solve. And every day feels like, what is the closest alligator to the boat I need to deal with? It's been very fresh. It's been huge learning every single year, every company. And yeah, I couldn't do anything else.
Well, did you tell your mother you certainly didn't take the easy path? I've heard about the chartered accountant and Institute of Chartered Accountants in India, and that's a tough exam, right?
Yeah, well, she has 3 kids. One of them's a doctor, one's a lawyer, and I am what I am. She still doesn't have an engineer, and she complains about it.
So I'm on the board at the School of Accountancy here in Memphis, and we actually just got the accounting program approved as a STEM program. And I think it was for that very reason. I think it was so Indian mothers would feel okay sending their
I need to tell her that right now.
You had to have picked up so much along the way. And just looking back at across all those stops and now at BILL, are there experiences along the way that stand out as turning points and that kind of shape the way you think about finance today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think starting out my career with GE was probably the most defining and the most critical moment in my career, because it's the GE DNA in finance is really strong. You probably see around you, there are so many CFOs that have come from GE and are just great leaders. So what we do there is this, a school you get into the machine, and they churn out people who are deeply rooted into what it means to run a business, not just be a finance partner. So you are, along with your CEO or your GM, the only other person who knows everything about what's happening in the business, irrespective of, portfolios or functions and such. So just for an example, when one of my early roles in GE Healthcare factory, when I was doing the factory manager role, a finance manager role, I actually stood in the line to make circuit boards to know how that's done. I actually, during the quarter end rush, I would be in the shipping dock helping pack boxes and shipping them out of the door. So the learning about not only how to get deeper into the operations of the business, build your business acumen, but also how to do it at scale. Like GE has presence in every single country. It has probably teams across multiple continents. So doing all of that at scale, I think that was just a really great training ground for me. And then every other role and company that I've gone to, there's been at least one or two special things that I've drawn out of them. So when I went to eBay, not only learning about the tech world and the finance work somewhat differently from a mindset perspective as well in technology, but I did analytics roles there, which exposed me to big data and the complexity of just how much data there is in transaction businesses, right? And how to deal with that and how to make very efficient, effective decisions with that. Then moved over to PayPal, new industry, fintech. The most exciting thing, almost a turning point in my development as well, was when I moved out of finance for a couple of years and did a product role. Nerve-wracking, right? It was really hard to be the person who knows the least in the room after being the expert for several years when you enter the room, right? So it was really uncomfortable at that stage in my career, but great learning. And I feel like that was a moment in finance, or not being in finance was when I learned most about finance, because you kind of look at the mirror and you see what you are not doing well. So huge turning point. And then, taking this role at Bill, I mean, talk about an accelerated growth curve and a learning curve. It's been all of that, and working with a wonderful team here has been great.
That's amazing. And what I really like, it sounds like the through line in that story is it's so easy. And I think that finance has evolved over the years, but I know when had you not started at GE, it may have been similar, but when I started in finance, we were in this ivory tower where everything was theoretical and we were just in there with our spreadsheets and our models and crunching our number. And I can remember telling someone when I had a career change, I went to a different company, that I didn't care what the widget was. I'm just the numbers guy, the bean counter, I guess is what I accidentally called myself. And I had that mentality early in my career, and maybe at a functional level, you can get by with that. But I think finance has evolved so much now, and you still have to have all that domain expertise, but you also have to have this breadth of knowledge that I think when I started out in finance, you didn't have to have that. And I think that GE training and then switching into the product role, I know you said on the product role, you kind of see outside in what finance is doing and learn from there, but just by understanding these aren't just numbers, these are processes, techniques, people, and everything that's behind it. What did you take away from that?
So many things, right? One of the things is it makes you really empathetic to the business. And sometimes I've seen finance people come in and say, oh, why are we not meeting the numbers and what's happening? Rather than trying to get to the root of the problem, you sometimes are just dictating what the outcome needs to be, and that doesn't help. So simple things like when you're thinking about product release and what you need to bake into the next year's plan from that, now I know that how much time it needs to not only make that product, get it released, start talking to the customers about it. There is a ramp period there. There is this whole cycle that needs to happen. We cannot just as finance people push a higher number and make the business feel like committed to that, right? So there's this element of empathy and understanding that you get being outside of finance, which I think is super critical. And then in the end, the impact comes from business results. It doesn't come from sitting and counting the numbers. So if you want to drive business results, you want to be a problem solver with them versus stating the problem for the business.
Yeah, I love that, because in my CFO roles, I would come in and immediately anger the COO and the CRO, because I would be so interested in what was happening outside of the general ledger, because whether it was to make a better forecast or figure out cash flow or just understand the business, you start overreaching, and sometimes it can create some friction if the company culture isn't there. But I just think
Yeah,
whether you own the numbers or the metrics, being able to understand them makes you better at finance, and it makes you able to
100%.
be more strategic.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
sure in your experience, you would have learned that it's probably friction for a very short period of time. The moment they realize that you're there to help them get to their numbers versus just give them a number, I think it really changes the dynamic between the two.
Yeah, and you're probably a way better people person than I am. So they stayed angry at
That's
me. I
not
don't.
what people tell me, but thank you. I take it.
I love having that broader view coming into the Office of Finance, and we're not just here in our ivory tower, and then moving across different big companies like that. Every company measures performance a little bit differently, and I'm imagine there are things that you've taken from each of them. And I know you could be in different industries, and different things apply. But for you, are there any key metrics that really stand out and really matter to FP&A? I mean, the ones that really drive the story behind the numbers. And this could be from a previous role or what's most important to you at Bill, whatever makes the most sense.
This is again more relevant as I think about the technology industry that I've been a part of for now several years. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's just too many metrics. There's too many metrics that everybody is trying to measure and trying to focus on and trying to solve for. So I wouldn't, Glenn, give you one or two metrics. I would just say that the job of the finance and FP&A teams is to really understand what matters most. What are the metrics that matter in this time in life of the company, in this industry, and where they're headed, and what is really the most important thing to focus on? So not a list, but a few handful that they can really start to work through with the business teams and their leaders to make an impact on those. The other thing that I have learned around metrics is there are several unintended consequences of measuring a metric. So what's very important to me as I think about what really matters and what I want to measure is what is the control metric that's associated to it. So if you're trying to maximize your sales number, you will do a certain type of metrics for sales compensation or whatever else, but you have to have a control metric of profitability around that. If you're trying to manage your risk basis points of how much risk can you tolerate, you still want to have the sales metric tied to it, that how much friction are you putting on the sales metric. So I think seeing the both sides and trying to figure out what could be the potential unintended consequences of measuring just one metric is really important.
And identifying which ones are the actual levers, which are,
Exactly.
they could be lagging indicators, or which ones, if we impact this, we're actually going to drive results.
Yeah, they need to be leading indicators. They need to be controllable. A lot of companies spend a lot of time trying to constantly measure and keep themselves busy with looking at things that they cannot control. It's good to know them periodically, but you need to obsess about things you control and things that are leading indicators that drive outcomes.
Yeah, and there can be so much noise in it. I was in private companies, primarily private equity backed, and we'd have our quarterly meetings with the board and whoever else was in those meetings, and it grew to a point where we had, it was an 80-page deck, then a 90-page deck, then a 120-page deck, where you have all these metrics in there, and you're going through them, and it can just sound like, as you go through the different management reports, like you're reading a laundry list, and it seemed like every board member had certain metrics that they cared about. And then when somebody was talking about metrics they didn't care about, they would just be off, making notes or doing what they did. And if you tried to pull any of them out,
Yeah,
the
somebody
one
has
board
a
member who was
problem.
interested
Yeah.
in it, yeah. But it's so hard to filter through that noise. And I think that's where that's where we're going to add value, when we know what those key metrics are and when we can tell the story around them. And yes, okay, everybody has their pet metrics that they want to look at, but being sure that we're focused on the right ones.
Yeah.
And they're going to differ by industry,
And
obviously, like you
I
said.
understand there are a lot of early indicating metrics, and they could be hundreds and thousands in a large company. But this is where I'm super excited about AI as well, where I've always had this optimal vision of what I would like to do is this probably a dashboard or something that's measuring all the metrics I never have to look at. And there's some sort of eye in the sky that's sort of looking at it and saying, okay, these are the 5 ones that are outside of the control threshold. And you tee those up and you still look at it and say, okay, these things could generally end up with a lot of noisy fluctuations. But we can now leverage AI to build things like that, where we are focused on the 5 or 6 metrics that are most important for the company, but there's a tool that's kind of keeping an eye on everything else.
You're speaking my language now. And that's, I mean, to me, that's the dream, because I spent so much time going through data, trying to find correlations, maybe even to things that weren't there. And I know correlation doesn't mean causation, but to your point, there's so much data out there, and it's more than we can ingest and keep up with.
Absolutely.
And maybe all those metrics are somewhere important, but if you had something running AI in the background that found those correlations and figured out, hey, this is a leading indicator here. If we see this move, we know this is the downstream effect. And that's, I imagine at Bill, with all the data that you have, that you're actually maybe seeing some of that in real time.
That's something that I'm super excited about, right? I mean, the issue that ends up happening without AI deployment in these things is there are a lot of false positives or false negatives, and you're then chasing how do we get high quality signals. And the more data that you have, the more scale that you have, means more effective AI, right? So you could actually really, so Bill's just positioned in the right place to do that for our customers.
So with your finance team there, I'm always curious to hear how different companies, especially companies with a lot of data, how they structure that finance team. And I'm thinking specific, I mean, we can talk about the broader team as well, because all that's important, but I'm thinking specifically about the role of data science, and how, if you have data scientists on your team, or if they work really closely with the data science and BI team, like how do you, I'm thinking about the team structure and then the different skills, but also making sure the team stays connected, like you were talking about, with the rest of the business, product, engineering, operations. It's a big challenge to have this diverse skill set, and then to have them all business partnering with the other groups. How do you approach that at Bill?
That's actually a really excellent question, right? The way to think about it is, and I talked a little bit about how you just need to build a lot of business acumen to be able to be an effective finance person. The second side of that equation is functional expertise. So you know the business, you have the functional expertise, and you have the latest in technology, you have that appetite to learn and grow. You bring all of that together and have the right balance between the two is where the success lies. And one of the key things that I've been really thinking about over the last few years is, how do we continue to evolve the skill set of the finance people and the FP&A people? It's no longer going to be the traditional accounting-based teams that are very good at what they do from a finance ROI type of work. We really we need to seed our teams with a few people, these young kids who are very exposed to the latest and the greatest tools, who are using AI. And actually, a few years ago, I had some finance people who were doing machine learning and SQL and all of those things to help us. Now that needs to have a step change, right? So even if you're structured to support the business, you have to mirror the org of the CEO you're supporting from a finance perspective. That's the only way to succeed, right? But within these teams, you need to start to now add a different type of skill set that starts to work together, and sort of, with osmosis or something, everybody starts to grow into that place. And you just need a couple of change drivers. You need a couple of people to be thinking about the processes and such, and making these rapid changes.
And how do you deal with the business partnering? Do you actually have team members that are embedded in other groups, or how do you handle the sort of the cross-functional reporting for finance?
Yeah, so we have that. And I've had that almost always all through my career, where my team is really structured to mirror my CEO Renee's team. And each person is sitting there. And then I have a corporate team that's adding up all of that work and driving the corporate-wide initiatives. So as we think about streamlining, reporting, dashboarding, introducing AI, and all of that stuff, there's a corporate team that just spends time on that and pushes it down.
I love that. Yeah. And that really, I mean, that level of business partnering, it builds trust. It gives you better insight, and the people who are working with those teams have a way better understanding of it. And they like going up and going to the assembly line and doing their steps and understanding that. I mean, you know how to report better on what that flow is and everything.
Yeah. And those guys spend way more time with their business partners than they do with me, right? That's their key stakeholder.
Yeah, I love that. So looking back at your career, what would you say are the biggest lessons you've learned about how to run FP&A well? I love the business partnering part, and then mixing in the new technologies. Would you say there are traits or things you can do that separate a good finance function from a great one, what it takes to get it to that next level?
Yeah, I think there are a few things in my mind that separate great finance functions. The first one is the mindset of not being stuck within your job description is really important. The most exciting times in my career have been where I have done things to solve business problems that have nothing to do with my job. So those are the type of people that I want to always hire, that, they have all the finance expertise, but they don't stick to that job description and go solve for problems. Curiosity, I feel over time, I have learned that people who are curious are the ones that I want in my FP&A teams. You just need to ask questions, not only to learn the business, how to do things best, talk industry-wide, see what's happening, and all of that. The curiosity of a person makes him or her a really great asset. And then people who can work with high velocity, like get stuff done. That's my thing. I like high energy people.
Yeah. And I love that curiosity component, because that goes so far. Because if you have that curiosity, then you're not going to be I'm just in the finance lane, or I'm just in the accounting lane. And I always think about FP&A really, in a lot of ways, you're an investigative journalist. It's one thing to just regurgitate numbers, but then ask why, and dig in. Yeah.
Yes. It could be annoying for everybody else, but it's useful.
FP&A Today is brought to you by DataRails, the world's #1 FP&A solution. DataRails is the artificial intelligence-powered financial planning and analysis platform built for Excel users. That's right, you can stay in Excel. But instead of facing hell for every budget, month-end close, or forecast, you can enjoy a paradise of data consolidation, advanced visualization, reporting, and AI capabilities. Plus game-changing insights giving you instant answers and your story created in seconds. Find out why more than 1,000 finance teams use DataRails to uncover their company's real story. Don't replace Excel, embrace Excel. Learn more at datarails.com.
So, loaded question from me, because I have thoughts around this. With everything that's going on with generative AI right now, and I understand, for years, people in FP&A have stood out by, if you learn to write a SQL query, and if you learn Python and you can do some cooler things than what your buddies in Excel can do, that's great. But I think
not to undermine Excel for 1 second there.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. We love Excel here at DataRails. Yeah. And actually, even doing data science projects, I mean, I talk to data scientists all the time, and Excel is kind of where you end up to do your sort of presentation layer. And
the last mile. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But with generative AI, I always think of it like, okay, we've been talking about democratization of data for, 20 years now, or however long. But with generative AI, it's almost like there's a democratization of data science right now, in that that barrier to entry, if you can't write a SQL query, or you can sort of write one and you need it to be QA'd and fixed, generative AI can fix that, or it can do crazy forecasting, like build a complex, like a REMA forecast or something for you that would be a pain to do in Excel. But I think with generative AI, obviously, you hear all the time about glitches where people are using it wrong, but it's going to change and shape finance for years to come. And I don't know, I always like to think about, if you were talking to someone straight out of college, or this could even be to your team, but if someone wants to level up their impact and career right now, where do you think they should study? And it seems like maybe that answer would have been different pre-generative AI. And I know I said it was loaded. I'm completely leading you down that path. So don't feel like you have to answer just for that. But, and maybe there are some things beyond that, but people just starting in their careers, or teams trying to level up, what skills should they be building, and where should they be focused right now for the future?
Yes, there's so many dimensions to that question. I still think that as your finance is still a technical field, you need to know accounting, you need to know the regulation, and you need to know how to keep the books. So those type of things are still very fundamental. Understanding data structures, and I personally think was very helpful for me to do the analytics stint, because you may not use it today because you have the AI tools to help you. It's the same thing as calculator, but a leap forward, right? You still want to know how to do the multiplication, even if you don't do it. So I think having that foundation is really important, so you can smell if there are things that are not outputting appropriately through the AI, right? So I still like the idea of foundational skills that you're building through education, but more than any kind of education is this, and I tell my kids all the time, right, is the ability to continue to learn. This growth mindset piece was never as relevant as it is today. So I don't care what you studied, as long as you're super curious, high energy in terms of learning new things and evolving your career. I think that's what we need, because we don't know what this is gonna look like in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. But I still know that there will be problems that will need to be solved. AI will be an amazing companion to give you data. It'll be a companion to point you in the right direction, but you still need a human mind to say, okay, we're going to take this path out of the three that are possibly out there. And honestly, as I look back, there were days and nights. I mean, I had a small child in a bucket seat, and I was in the office rocking her and closing the books over the weekend. What AI could help us do is take out a lot of that manual work that all of us had to do growing up, which, we didn't love so much. Nights that ended at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock because we're doing budget submissions. If all of that gets automated, that's great. You have more time to then learn about the business and help strategize with your business partners. And this is exactly, I'm going to talk about Bill, because this is what makes me excited to be here, is that's what we're trying to do for smaller companies. Now, big companies can put the resources behind it, all the tools and the infrastructure behind it. But the smaller SMBs, they're sometimes just a handful of people who is also the chief marketing officer or the CFO or the strategy guy or whatever else it might be. So if we were to really help them with the tools and AI agents that help them do things much faster and take out all the grunt work, they can actually focus on growing their business the right way. I know it's a long-winded answer over here, but I do feel passionately about that.
No, your long-winded answer was probably half as long as my question. So they'll edit me out. They'll just say, "There's Glenn rambling again." So what's top of mind for you personally these days? I mean, we talked about, where teams and they should be focusing their curiosity, but as someone who I can tell has that curiosity, what are you learning or trying to master in kind of this next chapter of your career?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined Bill, I did it for a reason, because I wanted to really get deeper into the SMB space. On the B2B side, I've worked on B2B side for a long time, but wanted to really understand what their needs and problems and such were. So that was a part of it. Secondly, from a functional perspective, there's a business element, always a functional element, right? From a functional perspective, I worked closely in the past with IR teams, but not had investor relations, and managed the relationships with the shareholders and such in the past. So that was one of the things that I wanted to come in and learn, and I'm very focused on that, spending a lot of time there. As well as the capital markets area, that's something that I'm, getting my hands into and wrapping my head around, which is great learning for me. But on top of that, on a more personal level, even though I was expecting some of this, getting a public company CFO role, it just takes you by surprise how much time you need to devote to external commitments. And then, how do you balance what you need to do internally in running the business, building the teams, and investing in talent and all of that. So that's the balance I'm trying to figure out right now. And secondly, I'm going to throw it out there because, the stress of this role, it doesn't switch off.
Yeah.
It doesn't switch off. It's like 7 days a week, 24 hours. And how do you manage through that when you have a family, you have other commitments, and you have, what's happening at work? So I think on a deeper level, those are some of the things that are very top of mind for me.
Yeah, I could see between IR and regulatory, you add that on top of the already full-time job, and throw ESG in there too, but that
Yes.
on top of the regular full-time commitments, doesn't matter how big of a team you have. If you're managing all that, that's a lot of
The buck stops with you in the end.
Yeah. So, and it's your signature on the financials, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time you have to go out and guide, you're like, a few sleepless nights before and after, for sure.
I love what you said about your interest around SMBs, because I spent a large portion of my career on that side. And even now in consulting, because I'm so leaned into AI and AI projects, I'm really focused on enterprise now, maybe more than I ever have been. But I think about this because I still have a lot of contacts in the private equity portfolio company, a smaller business space, and they don't have the budget or the resources to really capitalize on where AI is right now. So what Bill's doing, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but I've thought from the beginning, there's going to be someone who is like what QuickBooks was for small businesses back a million years
Yeah.
ago, where now you have an accounting platform that's affordable and you don't have to have the big ERP system and all that.
Yeah.
But you think about like all these small businesses, you don't have big data to benefit from. If you've got a dry cleaner that has 3 or 4 locations, that's not big data. And you probably, whatever data you have is not consolidated or aggregated anywhere. So when I hear about your focus there, and I know where Bill is on that, that's interesting to see where we're going in the future. And I think I'm jumping ahead. Well, we're going to go ahead and get there because I've gone 30 minutes into the show now, and I'm just now getting to AI, which everybody who listens to me knows that I'm jumping at the bit out of the gate to do that. So when most people today, when they hear AI, the first thing they think is generative AI. But I know Bill's been an AI powered platform for a decade, classical AI, machine learning.
Yes.
But I do know that now you're rolling out some new agentic capabilities that I'm super excited to hear about. So without stealing any of your thunder, I'd love to hear what Bill has going on with AI and the new. But I don't know. You could start telling me kind of, if you want, you can go into how you've used AI historically, and then I'd love to hear about some of the new products as well.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about the new products. It's exciting moment in our life. So the first thing I mentioned before I get into the agents is that we have invested the time and effort in building out an integrated platform for AI. So we have multiple different products that we serve up for the SMBs, which are helping them on a day-to-day basis to take out a lot of the manual work anyway. But now, with that integrated platform, we want to have the capability to rapidly release the agents. And the other thing about the agents is that we really want to first think about the problem that the SMBs have and what are we solving for versus, this agent just looks very cool and we're going to roll it out. But we're very deeply thinking about how to prioritize it. And, I'll talk about a couple of problems that we kind of focused on to roll out solutions for first. And the first one is the W-9s. I mean, we all love tax, don't we? So one of the things we hear a lot from the SMBs is that it's so hard to collect the W-9s come tax season. And on an average, it takes them about a week out of their year to just do this collection effort and reconciliation and all of that work. So what we are we are a two-sided network, which is great. We have the relationship with the suppliers, we have the relationship with the APs or the bill customers. So we have this agent coming out that will go do that for you. It'll take out more than 80% of the manual work required. It'll get the W-9s, it'll reconcile it automatically, and boom, the work's done. And I mean, I can already see the smiles on people's faces when this happens because it's really a zero value added work that they have to do. And it's just back and forth. I don't know how you feel about collecting your own tax documents to file your returns.
So I was going to say, I know when at most companies where I was at smaller companies, even like not having that process up front to collect if you go through a big company that has a procurement and onboarding process, they're going to get the W-9s early on and everything.
You throw the people at it and you'll figure it out. Yes.
Yeah. But in small companies, it was always just that scramble. So that's significant for a lot of companies out there. That's huge.
Super excited about it. But this second one, actually, it's personally so exciting for me because I am really not good with this. So we all travel for the company and such, and you would have experienced, the S&E card that we have or the corporate charge card that you guys would use, the effort required in taking pictures of the receipts, trying to keep them safe in a separate pocket of a wallet, and then trying to upload it to your systems and make sure it reconciles. And now there is a $10 error that I don't know why and what's happening. So what we're also trying to do for the S&E business is to automate all of that. So there would be automatic collection of the receipts from your emails if you include it and whatnot, and automatically gets into your S&E card platform and it reconciles it and boom, you're done. I know my EA will be so excited about it because I never send her the receipts on time. So there's going to be a boohoo from a lot of people. So this one really resonates personally for me as well. Just to give you the context of the size and scale, within Bill SNE platform, we have 70 million receipts that happen. And there's an interesting stat that I heard is that if you were to line them up around the Earth, you would circle the Earth 3 times around the diameter.
That's incredible.
Right? Wow. Imagine the amount of work that takes to upload these and reconcile these. And a large portion of that just goes away with the agent we're releasing. So that's really exciting.
That's so huge. As someone who just filed an expense report this morning and was digging through and like, what can I put here? What is this?
I know, isn't that your favorite thing to do?
Yeah. Oh, that is huge. And I think, and it's when we talked about at the beginning, and this is the part I've been really excited to get to. I mean, those are steps towards autonomous finance, thinking about that mindless work that people have had to do. That kind of work is what got us labeled years ago. And I know we've evolved since then, but got finance and accounting labeled as a cost center. And especially in the SMB space, where if, like you said, if they do have a CFO, it's usually, maybe it's a combo role or something that it's hard to imagine having time to be strategic and add value when you're really, a controller with a higher title, but really you're looking backwards so much. And this kind of thing for SMBs, just because they don't have the staffing to be able to do this, that could be huge and lead towards, I know it sounds like this is, when you talk about autonomous finance, these are steps in that progression. So from your perspective, what does that mean? And again, I guess let's stay especially focused on small and mid-sized businesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The way I think about autonomous finance, it has to be more than just AI. It cannot just be all about AI. It's like a whole bunch of things that the SMBs need to make their lives easier. And some of them we have been doing here at Bill already, but just need to continue to do more of. So to me, it's, how do you create the most opportunity and have the least amount of friction in anything that you do? And it would be a combination of the tools and resources, which you mentioned. Absolutely. The large companies can throw money at that problem, and SMBs don't always have that opportunity to do it. So, giving them the right tools, giving them AI agents is a part of that for sure, but not everything. But at the same time, giving them control, because everybody doesn't feel the same way about giving up control to the AI agents, right? So the way we want to build some of these is to have the customers have a say in how much they want to give up control. So that's on the AI agents. And thirdly, and I think also really important, is not to have multiple connection points to all the different systems that you're using. So how do we start to integrate and solve problems with our customers with them just having one entry point to one service provider? So this kind of gets us into what we've been trying to do here at Bill, is what we call embed finance. And what that means is really we are partnering now. We announced that a few weeks ago with both Paychex as well as with NetSuite, where we're going to go meet our customers where they're at. They will have one connection point, simple integration, and we go and solve their problems across a lot of different things that they need to do. So I think autonomous finance has to just evolve to a bunch of solutions for these SMBs that are just making life easier every day for them.
That's so massive, because I think about the work that I do with enterprise clients right now. And for enterprise level, complex different systems, we have to find something to automate. We're actually building custom automations, and everything is sort of bespoke, and there's all the issues that come with that and the time. And that's not anything that SMBs could ever do on their own. But for you guys to productize it and bring that to them, and partnering and connecting to the other platforms like NetSuite, I mean, that's meeting them where they are. And there's huge, huge value in that.
Exactly. I mean, you don't want several people to call if something goes wrong, or you don't want to be approached by several people to, now I can do this and I can do this piece of the problem. So I think as much as we can integrate and work together to solve their problems, I think will be so much more effective.
Yeah. And that, like I was saying earlier, picturing someone that's going to come along and be able to really focus on SMBs. And I think that the amount of data that Bill has and what you guys see, I read the other day what you guys have processed, something like $1 trillion in payments and over 1 billion documents. And I think because of that, and it goes to what you're saying about the receipts too, but you have all this data that you can get the insights that your clients can't. So I'm wondering, how do you turn that data advantage into whether it's smarter or more reliable agents, or helping kind of define the product and understand how to have something that's not that bespoke solution, that this will work across, you know, our whole spectrum?
Yeah, I mean, we have several examples in our business that talk to that, right? I mean, all of the data that we have, all of the scale that we have is obviously a no-brainer, right? It just leads to smarter agents. And one of the great examples of that would be in the risk space. So a lot of SMBs are cash crunched, and we want to solve some of the cash flow problems for them. And we have some financing solutions like invoice financing and such for them. They don't have to go through a lot of work to try and get that financing. We have AI deployed in our risk engines that helps us really very quickly deploy that cash to the right suppliers who are wanting to finance. So there's a bunch of places which are really going to benefit the SMBs, because we now have the data that it's on the both sides. I think the network is really also important in terms of thinking about we have the supplier data and we have the SMB customers data. And as you start to connect, you see the payments that happen across what are the best funding sources for you. Should you be paying by a virtual card? Should you be paying by this or whatever else, right? Those kind of decisions can be made for them to make it most effective. So we've been deploying that to get to that outcome rapidly.
And that's an amazing result to get to. But I know you're facing this too. Any sort of process like this, you have to have client trust and the explainability, and then keep the human in the loop wherever they want it to be. And I know trust and explainability, super hot topics right now. And, not that most of your clients are public customers, but they could still have audit, and they're still, trying to have gap accounting to whatever extent. But when you build this, I mean, I know you have to keep that in mind. So how do you make sure, and that's one of the issues, sort of the black box nature of agents sometimes, but how do you make sure that the agents act in a way that a controller or auditor could still go through and check and understand and verify what's happening?
Yeah, and that's a very valid question. And I've spent some time with our CTO here discussing how he's putting controls. So I think that was why we spent time building the platform, which has the right controls built into the platform itself, so that each AI agent doesn't need to overdo with the controls, right? So if there are controls built in, we are checking the performance before we release anything GA. Against the actual processes that exist, whether they're compliant. We are in a very regulated industry, so this is super important for us. And the other thing is that we have the scale and trust of the customers. We move that much money. If you're letting somebody move that much money, we have that trust. I think we need, and we are actually making sure that with all of the data that we have, our AI agents are really powerful in terms of, solving the customer problems with the right controls built into the platform. So I think that's how we think about it. But as you talk about the audit trail, we are trying to, I'll take you back to the example of the S&E receipts that I talked about, right? The receipt still exists. It's all the work to go take it from place A to place B to reconcile it, and all of that goes away, but the receipt doesn't go away. So the auditability is still fully there, and whatever the outcomes and documentation we want will still be there. But we're just taking out the manual work and automating the workflows and making the workflows kind of disappear in the background.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exciting thing, when it's not a matter of just the big players who can afford to build out these massive things have this capability, but it really goes all the way down to the SMB level. And I know before the show, we were talking about, the whole build, buy, or partner on a new capability. And right now, just with this kind of nascent stages of where we are with generative AI and agents, a lot of it was, well, if you want it, you have to build it. But I know it sounds like you guys are building a future where it's just going to be part of the package and everything. But and this could apply to your clients or to your own decisions, because I know you guys are pushing the edge on how AI is used and how you can apply it to your customers. So when you're deciding on that, and whether it's you or customer decision, when you're deciding on whether to build, buy, or partner on a new capability, what factors kind of tip the scale one way or another?
Yeah, I'm going to just zoom out even away from it as just conceptually. When do you build, buy, or partner is the important third component we used to not talk as much about. I think when the service that you're providing and the business that you do and this thing that you want to do is very core to that, it's your bread and butter. You should build it. Absolutely. I mean, it should stay in house. That's probably has some IP and whatnot, and you want to control the customer experience for sure. So that's the build. The buy, and I include acquisitions and all of that stuff in the buy, is to me a little bit of a one-way door when you're buying a capability, when it's just, let's say buying the capability of the LLMs. That's not core to our business and who we are and what we do. Somebody else can do a much better job. So we're not going to start writing our own LLMs, but we are going to go buy that from somebody. But I think the third most important thing is partner, right? What are the capabilities? And to me, partnerships are great because those are two-way doors that you can walk in and out of. There's really less stickiness there. You need to build trust. You need to see if it works for both the parties. And if it does, you go deeper in, right? And we are doing a lot of partnerships in our business. It's less capital outlay. I think it's a win-win for both the parties. And this is, again, going back to the embed solutions we are doing. We are getting to the customers that otherwise would take us longer to get to through these partners. Those customers are already there. And our partners are able to serve their customers with all the needs as well. So I think it's just a great win-win. And I think I see the industry more and more evolve towards partnerships. It's just the right way to go.
Yeah, I love that. And to your point on if it is your core skill set and function and focus, obviously, yes, that makes sense. But otherwise, like in Bill's case, other platforms that the same customer base is using, it makes sense for everyone to have to be in the same protocol, to sing from the same sheet of music and to be able to integrate seamlessly. And it's just, I think about whether it's an ERP implementation or anytime you're making a change in your finance tech stack, like if the switching cost is painful because the two systems don't play well together, then it makes it harder for everyone. So it really sounds like that whether it's new features you guys are rolling out or those partnerships, that it's really going to reduce that friction for SMBs. And that's huge.
Absolutely. Reduce the friction, not only that one time getting started friction, but also every day as you're operating, you just have one point of connection for everything.
Yeah, love it. Well, we are getting to the time of the show. I can't believe it's flown by, where we have our two standard questions that we ask everyone. And the first one is, what is something that not many people know about you, something that we couldn't find online?
I do bake a mean bread. And why that is important in my current role or any other role in the past few years is that the more stressful the week before, the more complex the bread over the weekend. And I just like to knead it really well to take out all that anxiety. It works really well, and my family loves it. So it's, again, a win-win situation.
I love that. Baking therapy.
It's more kneading therapy, I would say.
Yeah.
But the outcome is great. What's your favorite bread?
I don't know. I'm
Don't tell me you're paleo or keto.
Well, no, I was sort of going down that. I'm sort of brainwashed a little bit on this carb stuff. So, okay. This one is, I need to start recording these because I love all the answers that I get. And there are some consistent ones at the top, but I love asking this to CFOs because I was a guest on the show before I was the host of it. And you and I know that when you're an analyst and you're down in the weeds, you know all kinds of cool things that Excel can do, and you've got a ready answer for this. But when you're the CFO, yeah, you want to understand how the models work, but you're not out there writing complex let statements and using whatever, writing Python in Excel and all that. So, and I think someone told me I dated myself with my answer, but all that to say, I think I said center and merge. It was my favorite.
No way.
Or just no.
I do not like merge cells because it kind of messes up the flexibility of your spreadsheet.
It 100% does. Yes. Yeah. And it makes things even weirder for if you're trying to do a machine readable spreadsheet too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So with all that, what is your favorite Excel function and why?
damn, that's like asking a mom to choose her favorite child. I love Excel. What I'm going to say, I'm going to give you more than one, but I'm going to start with pivot tables only because, I do love them. I love the simplicity, elegance, and how it simply transforms the data. But also, I don't know if you know our CTO, Ken Moss. He actually was instrumental in building pivot tables when he was in Microsoft. So he
Oh,
keeps reminding us all
wow.
the time about
Yeah.
this. So shout out to Ken Moss for
Thank
pivot
you,
tables.
Ken.
It's
Yeah.
great, exactly. Um, but I will tell you that, love the evolution of VLOOKUPs into index matches
Yeah.
and all of that. It's been fantastic. But very infrequently used, GoalSeek has saved me in a lot of sticky situations. I
Yeah.
think that's an ingenious formula. I would say GoalSeek.
100%. And I haven't used it in forever, but I can remember the
Don't
first time I
use it.
saw that, I
Yeah.
was like, this is magic.
It's magic. Yes, you don't use it, which is good. You shouldn't be using it, but when you need it, it's really helpful.
Yeah. So my first CFO role, I guess, was back in 2007. And when I was asked that question, my answer was VLOOKUP, not even a later
See,
iteration of it, not
VLOOKUP
even
is
just
special.
VLOOKUP.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That,
It's special. It's mature. There's a 2.0, which is index match. There's a 3.0, which is
yeah.
X or something. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
called even. But yeah, I'm probably
Um,
from your times, and we
yeah.
loved VLOOKUP.
Yeah. And I always say, if I'm having to make complex spreadsheets right now, then something has gone horribly wrong. So
I like to do that for
yeah.
therapy as well. So.
Yeah. That is true. I still do weird things in Excel, like, writing a letter to a family member. Let's do it in Excel.
Yeah, I take notes in Excel. I still take notes in Excel. Yes.
Well, Rohini, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been fantastic. I loved hearing about your journey and about everything that you're doing at Bill.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.